Start rock here with some math. We're gonna learn in this video how to factor a quadratic expression down to the two linear expressions that were multiplied together to get it, those linear expressions being the factors. So we want to take a quadratic expression and factor it to its linear factors. Now, here's a quadratic right here. 6x squared plus 13, can we see that? Let's blow this up a little. 6x squared plus 13x minus 5. And what we want to do is find the linear factors. We know there's a pair of linear factors. Something like this would be a linear factor. Okay, we know there's a pair of linear factors that multiplied together to get this quadratic expression, and we want to find those two linear factors. And we know that when you multiply, like if I take let's review multiplication for a minute. If I have 3x plus 1 times, say, 4x plus something, also 1, say, you know that you're going to go this 3x times that 4x to get the x squared term. So this x squared term comes from the two leading terms in the linear factors. So we know to get 6, it could be 2x and 3x, or maybe it's 6x and 1. I guess here, let me do this one in smoke. Maybe it'd be something like 6x and 1x here, 1x. You know, that's a possibility. Okay, could be that. Then the other thing you know is when you multiply, if I were to multiply these two out, of course I'd get a 3x and I'd get a 4x from my multiplication. I'm kind of assuming you're pretty good at multiplying. So there'd be a 3x and there'd be a 4x. So that gives you the middle term when you add that up. But the last term would be 1, because 1 times 1 is 1 here. Okay, well for us, our last term is 5. So we know to get a 5, there must be a 1 and a 5. Now, it could be a 5 and a 1. And you know, your job is to figure out, well, which one is it? Is it 1 and 5 or 5 and 1? Or is it not with the 2 and 3 at all? Maybe it's with the 6 and 1. Let's check this out. I'm gonna move this possibility out of the way. Oh, what's happening there? Okay. So let's see, if I make this, if I do the 2x times the 5, that would be 10x. And if I multiply the 1 by the 3, that would be 3x. But you would only get 13x if you were adding those. And notice we need a negative 5. So I need one of these to be negative and one to be positive. So I'm not going to get a positive 13. So I don't like the 1 and the 5 here. It's just not going to work out, because if I put a negative here, this is negative, and I put a positive here, this is positive. A positive 3 and a negative 10 is not 13. If I put a negative here and a positive there, it's still not going to work. So let's move the 5 and the 1. And let's keep in mind that it might be 6 and 1. So I move the 5 here and the 1 here. And I think about it. See, this is 2x. When I multiply 2x by 1, when I multiply by 5 by 3x, I get 15x. Aha! If I make this plus, so that this is a positive 15, and I make this minus, so 2x times negative 1 is a negative 2, that will add to positive 13. So this is the correct factorization there. Now, my colleagues don't like the way I teach factoring. They say this, having to guess and check whether 5 and 1 or 1 and 5 or possibly even 6 and 1 is paired with the 1 and 5 is just too much. And it's a fair criticism, it really is. To me, it's natural, but you know, I've been multiplying a long time. If you're just now learning this, you might need a more structured approach to how to factor a trinomial than what just seems obvious, because it might not just seem obvious to you yet. So I'm going to show us another method. And I'm trying to do my best, but this is not how I factor. So this is from my colleagues who have a fair criticism on teaching methods, so I'm trying to adopt their method. They teach something called the AC method. And the AC method means you're thinking of this quadratic expression in its general form, ax squared plus bx plus c. So AC, call it the AC method because they take A and put it next to C. In other words, A times C. Well, our A is 6 and our C is 4. So they go A times C and they get negative 24. And then they list all the factors of negative 24. So they list, say, 8 and 3. If you multiply 8 by 3, you get 24. Then 6 and 4 make 24. They make they do let's see, 2 and 12 multiplied together would give us 24. Let's see, 1 and 24 multiplied together would give us 24. Have I done all of them? Of course, we're sticking to whole numbers here, so we don't have to do like a half times 48. So these are the factors of 24. And then they look at the sums of all these. Unless this is a negative, then they look at the difference of all these. So if this is negative, they look at the difference of all these. So 8 and 3 is a difference of 5. And if the 8's negative, then 5's negative. If the 3's negative, the 5's positive. But I might have said that backwards. But anyway, the sign of the 5 depends on which one of these is negative. The difference between 6 and 4 is 2. The difference between 2 and 12 is 10. And the difference between 24 and 1 is 23. Notice this 23 matches that 23. That's the hurrah moment. What you're going to do for the AC method is always get AC, write down all the factors, write down their sums if this is positive, or their differences if this is negative. And in this case, and then whichever one of these matches that middle number is your secret weapon. So this is our secret weapon. And now I'm going to continue with the process. What you do, let me move this out of the way. Once you find that, 23, you use this 1 and 24 to make 23 with this middle term. So I'm going to rewrite this middle term as plus 1x minus 24x minus 4. So I just rewrote the middle term as 1 minus 24. That's the same thing as negative 23. And then you factor by what's called grouping. You look at this group only. Let me do this in smoke. You think of this as just a binomial and you take out the greatest common factor. And then you look over this and think of it as a binomial and you take out the greatest common factor. So doing that, the greatest common factor here is x, and I get 6x plus 1. The greatest common factor here is, let's see, 4 goes into both 24 and 4. If this sign's minus, just keep it and make it a negative 4 that you're factoring out. So if it had been plus, I'd factor out a positive 4. But if I'm factoring out a negative 4 from a negative 24, I get a positive 6. And it's 6x because of that x. And then negative 4 factored out from a negative 4 is a plus 1. This system works when you get the same thing here. Notice that 6x plus 1 and that 6x plus 1 are the same. So they're a common factor. And I'm going to take that common factor out. If this was, just think for a minute, if we had xw minus 4w, wouldn't you take this w out and it would be x minus 4? Because w times x is xw and w times negative 4 is negative 4w. We're doing the same thing. This is our secret w, this highlighted green binomial. I'm going to factor out a 6x plus 1. And when I do, that's going to leave me an x minus 4, just like it did over here when it was factoring it out as a w. And these are the linear factors of the quadratic expression that we started with. So that was a lot more, but it's a very methodical method. So it has the advantage of, for beginners, that they have a process, an algorithm they can follow to find the factorization. So I encourage you to use whichever method you find best. Math made simple, Simpson Math.